Okay, so you know how everyone's always saying find your passion?
Yeah,
It's like easier said than done, right? Like
yeah,
trying to find a needle in a haystack while riding a unicycle blindfolded.
exactly.
And we're bombarded with all these motivational speakers and self-help gurus, but sometimes it feels like they're speaking a different language.
I hear you.
So today we're diving into some heavy hitters in the motivation world.
Okay.
Gary Vaynerchuk, Mel Robbins, Robert Greene, David Goggins.
A very diverse group.
They all have really unique perspectives, but I think there's a common thread running through their work.
And what is that?
This idea that finding your passion isn't about some magical formula. It's
Right.
about getting real with yourself,
Hmm.
like really digging deep into your own experiences,
I agree.
because the answers are often hidden in plain sight within our own stories.
Absolutely. And I think that's such a refreshing perspective.
It is, right? It's like we're trying to solve a riddle that we already have the answer to.
Exactly. And I think that's why these sources you've chosen are so compelling.
They don't shy away from the nitty-gritty, the messy realities of figuring things out.
Yeah.
It's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Right.
It's about embracing the journey with all its twists and turns.
I love that. And I think that's something that Gary Vaynerchuk embodies so well.
Oh, totally.
His energy is infectious.
This guy's like a human firecracker, right?
Like he's always on the move, always exploring, always trying new things.
I know.
And I think that's a huge part of his message.
What do you mean?
It's not enough to just think about your passions. You have to actually go out and experience them.
Yeah.
Like he says, trying to figure out what you love without trying anything new.
Oh. Is like refusing to eat a cookie because you're not sure if you like chocolate chips.
Exactly. You've got to get your hands dirty.
And taste all the flavors life has to offer.
Right. And Gary Vee, I mean, he embodies that.
Oh, yeah.
Like one, he's passionately talking about entrepreneurship.
And the next he's geeking out over sports or giving you a history lesson on hip hop.
Right.
It's like his brain is a constantly evolving mixtape of interests and passions.
Exactly. And I think that's so inspiring because it shows that you don't have to have it all figured out.
And that your passions can evolve over time.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be confined to one box.
And it's interesting because while Gary Vee is all about that external exploration, Mel Robbins brings it inward.
Oh, yeah. She's all about those internal cues,
Yeah.
like paying attention to your energy.
Exactly.
What lights you up? What makes you feel alive?
And she'd say it's not necessarily about finding some grandiose passion that's been with you since childhood.
It's more nuanced than that.
Right. It's about tuning into those moments, those
Yeah.
activities, interactions, even memories where you feel a surge of excitement.
Like a spark of possibility.
That's a great way to put it.
And I think she has this incredible story that really illustrates this point.
Which one is that?
It's about her early career as a lawyer.
Okay.
And she talks about defending this young man in court.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it was just one case in a sea of cases, she talks about how the feeling of making a difference in that moment,
Right.
it stuck with her.
For years.
Years. And it became a signal flare,
Wow.
pointing towards a path that truly resonated with her. That's powerful. And it makes you realize that sometimes these seemingly ordinary moments
Yeah,
can hold these profound clues to our purpose.
absolutely. It's about paying attention to those subtle nudges from the universe.
Like breadcrumbs leading us towards our own unique paths.
Exactly.
It's fascinating, though, right? Because if we're talking about these internal cues and these pivotal moments,
Yeah.
it makes you wonder, how far back do we need to go?
Right. Are we talking about our childhood dreams?
Exactly.
Those early aspirations?
Because if those moments from our past can be so revealing,
Mm.
is it about digging through our old yearbooks and reliving our glory days?
Well, it's not so much about reliving the past
Okay.
as it is about revisiting those core inclinations we had as kids.
Interesting.
And this is where Robert Greene's work comes in.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
He talks about these impulse voices from childhood.
Impulse voices. I like that.
And it's not about literally hearing voices,
Right.
but rather about tacking into those gut reactions we had
Yeah.
as kids, those strong, visceral likes and dislikes that often reveal our natural inclinations.
So, like, those things we were drawn to effortlessly.
Exactly. And the things we instinctively recoiled from.
It's like our inner compass was much louder back then.
Right. Because we weren't as influenced by societal expectations or external pressures.
Right. We were just following our curiosity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Greene uses a great example from his own life.
What's that?
She talks about being captivated by words as a child,
Oh, wow.
how he was fascinated by their structure and meaning. And looking back, it's so clear how that foreshadowed his path as a writer,
That's incredible.
right? It's like those early fascinations were planting the seeds for his life's work.
It reminds me of that interview with Andrew Huberman
Oh,
on
yeah.
that same podcast.
I remember that.
He was talking about his childhood and how much he loved flora and fauna.
He was a nature kid.
Totally.
Yeah.
Spending time in nature, visiting aquariums, it filled him with this sense of wonder.
Yeah.
And now look at him researching and talking about the natural world for a living.
It's amazing how those early passions can manifest in our adult lives.
It's like those seeds that Greene was talking about. They can lay dormant for years,
Right.
but they're still there
Waiting for the right conditions to sprout.
and blossom into something incredible.
And here's a crucial point that Greene makes.
What's that?
It's not just about the positive experiences, the things we loved as kids.
Right.
Even our negative experiences can be incredibly illuminating.
What do you mean?
He talks about how much he hated his early jobs,
Really?
the drudgery, the disillusionment.
I can relate to that.
It actually helped him clarify what he did want to do with his life.
So even those memories of frustration or discomfort,
They can hold valuable clues to our purpose.
it's like those experiences help us define our boundaries
Exactly.
and figure out what we don't want.
Which can be just as important as knowing what we do want.
I like that. It's all valuable data,
Absolutely.
even the stuff that makes us cringe.
It's all part of the journey.
So we've got these childhood clues, these impulse voices,
Yes.
and we're paying attention to our energy,
Right.
those moments that make us feel truly alive.
Then what?
How do we take all of that and translate it into actionable steps?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And that's where things get really interesting. Because it's like, okay, we've done the introspection, we've journaled about our childhood, we've analyzed our energy levels.
All right, like now what?
Exactly. How do we bridge the gap between those internal insights and actually creating a life that feels meaningful?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
It is. And this is where Simon Sinek's work
Yeah.
offers a really compelling framework.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Because he talks about finding your why, not just what you're passionate about.
Right, like the deeper motivation behind our actions.
Exactly. And he does this brilliant thing where he uses stories as a way to uncover those deeper whys.
You're talking about that podcast episode where he's coaching that guy who's feeling lost in his career?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's a perfect example.
This guy's like successful, right? He's had a great run as a TV presenter, but at 44, he's like, wait a minute.
There's got to be more to life than this.
Yeah, like something's missing.
And instead of giving him some generic advice, Sinek's like, tell me about a time you felt truly alive.
Okay.
And at first, the guy's a little thrown off guard.
Right, like where is he going with this?
But Sinek's like, I'm serious. Think back to specific moments in your life where you felt this surge of energy, this pure joy.
And the stories he pulls out of this guy are so fascinating.
They are. Like they seem totally random at first.
Yeah, like what do standing in the pit lane at a Formula One race and waking up in the backseat of your family's car on a camping trip have in common?
Right, but that's the beauty of Sinek's approach. He's not looking for surface-level connections.
He's searching for those emotional threads, those underlying patterns that reveal a deeper truth.
And as the guy's telling these stories, you can practically hear the shift in his energy.
Oh, totally. Like he's reliving those moments. And Sinek's like laser-focused listening for those subtle clues.
Because those stories aren't just random anecdotes. They're signposts pointing towards his why.
And what's amazing is that Sinek's able to pinpoint the common thread.
Which is...
This guy thrives when he's part of a team working towards a shared goal.
Exactly. It's about the feeling of belonging, the sense of purpose that comes from being part of something bigger than himself.
And that's his why. It's not about being on TV. It's about the connection, the collaboration, the collective pursuit of something meaningful.
Right. It's like his passion is ignited when he's surrounded by people who share his drive and his commitment.
So it's not just about finding a job you love.
It's about finding a way to connect with others through that work.
I love that. And it makes me think about how often we get so caught up in our own individual pursuits
Right.
that we forget the power of shared purpose.
Absolutely. And that brings us to David Goggins, who, as you might imagine, has a slightly different take on this whole purpose thing.
Oh yeah, Goggins is a different breed.
That's an understatement.
This guy's like the human embodiment of pushing limits.
Right. Like he's always pushing himself to the edge of his physical and mental capabilities.
And what's crazy is that he doesn't even seem to be looking for a specific outcome.
What do you mean?
It's like he's not climbing mountains or running ultramarathons to prove anything to anyone else.
It's all about mastering himself.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
he's his own toughest competition.
And that's a really powerful idea. Because for Goggins, Finding your purpose isn't about following some external path.
It's about forging your own path through sheer force of will.
Exactly. It's about constantly testing your limits, pushing past your comfort zone, and becoming the most formidable version of yourself.
It's like he's flipped the script on its head instead of waiting for a purpose to motivate him.
The act of pushing himself is the motivation.
I mean, it's intense.
It is.
But there's a certain freedom in that, don't you think?
Absolutely. Because it frees you from the pressure of having all the answers.
And it allows you to find purpose in the process itself.
Exactly. And he talks about this concept of performance without a purpose.
What does that even mean?
It means that even when there's no specific goal in sight, no race to run, no degree to earn.
We should still be operating at our highest level.
Right, because it's about building that internal drive, that unshakable resilience that allows you to seize opportunities when they arise.
So it's like he's saying, be so good they can't ignore you, but for your own damn self.
Exactly. It's about mastering the inner game so that you're equipped to play whatever game life throws your way.
It's interesting, though, right? Because we're talking about pushing limits and mastering ourselves.
Yeah.
But what about the external world?
What do you mean?
Like, what happens when you're facing real-world challenges?
Right.
Financial stress, uncertainty.
It's easy to talk about self-improvement when things are going well.
Exactly. Can you really embrace this abundance mindset when you're barely keeping your head above water?
That's such a valid point. And I think this is where Tony Robbins' perspective becomes super relevant. Because he's all about this idea of shifting from a scarcity mindset.
That feeling of, I don't have enough.
Exactly. To an abundance mindset.
There's always enough to go around.
Yes. And it's not about some magical manifestation of wealth or denying the realities of your current situation.
Okay.
It's about changing your relationship with what money represents.
So it's more of an internal shift.
Exactly. It's about believing in your own potential to create abundance even when things are tough.
It makes me think of that story Robbins tells about giving away his last few dollars.
Oh, yeah, when he was young and broke.
Right, and he's like struggling to make ends meet.
But he still chooses to help someone in need.
It's like a powerful example of putting your money where your mouth is.
Right. It's about aligning your actions with your values, even when it seems illogical or even scary.
But then he gets that check in the mail.
I know, right? It's like the universe was listening.
It's a great story.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, a part of me always wonders,
What's that?
is it just a coincidence?
Right.
Or is there something deeper at play here?
I think it speaks to a fundamental principle of abundance.
Which is?
That giving, even when you feel like you have nothing left to give, can actually create more abundance in your life.
So it's not about expecting something in return.
No, it's about shifting your focus from scarcity to possibility.
It's like you're saying, I trust that the universe will provide.
And by acting on that belief, by taking that leap of faith, you're actually opening yourself up to receiving.
Wow, we've covered so much ground in this deep dive.
We really have.
It's amazing how all these different perspectives ultimately point towards the same truth.
And what's it?
That finding your purpose isn't some linear path.
Right. It's not a straight line.
It's more like a jungle gym.
I like that.
You're climbing, swinging, sometimes falling.
And figuring out your way as you go.
But the journey itself is where the magic happens.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about embracing the messiness, the uncertainty, and trusting that you'll find your way.
And for our listener who's ready to embark on their own jungle gym adventure.
What are some key takeaways?
Yes. What can they start doing today to uncover their own unique purpose?
Well, I think it starts with awareness.
Okay.
Paying attention to those moments in your life where you felt truly alive.
Like those impulse voices from childhood.
Exactly. What were you drawn to? What lit you up?
And what made you want to run for the hills?
Yes. Because even those negative experiences can be incredibly revealing.
It's like they help us define our boundaries.
Right. And once you have a better understanding of what energizes you,
What's next?
it's about taking action.
Okay.
But not just any action. It's about embracing what David Goggins calls the unseen work.
The work that nobody else sees.
Exactly. The daily grind, the consistent effort that builds the foundation for greatness.
So it's not about waiting for the perfect opportunity, but becoming the kind of person who's ready for any opportunity.
Exactly. And finally, I think it's crucial to cultivate an abundance mindset.
Like Tony Robbins.
Yes. It's about approaching your work, your relationships, even your challenges, from a place of generosity and possibility.
So instead of saying, I don't have enough,
You ask yourself, how can I create more abundance?
how can I give back?
Exactly. Because the more you give, the more you open yourself up to receiving.
It's remarkable how these seemingly simple ideas can have such a profound impact on our lives.
They can. And the best part is,
What's that?
it's never too late to start exploring your own unique path.
So if you're feeling lost or unfulfilled,
Take a deep breath.
and remember,
You have the power to create a life that truly lights you up
it's time to embrace the journey.
and see where it takes you.
That's a wrap on this deep dive into finding your purpose.